Okay, so you've sent over some really interesting articles and videos about the 2024 election, and we need to dive into this. Let's start with this whole early voting thing. Georgia's seeing a huge surge already, like over 700,000 ballots cast, which is crazy when you think about it. That's over 15% of their total turnout from last time, and it's only October. North Carolina's got those super long lines, too. What do you think of all this early energy?
It's definitely something, right? We've been seeing this trend towards early voting more and more, but this many people this early in the game, it's really something else. Both parties are trying to figure out what it all means, who benefits the most from this. Democrats usually do well when more people vote, but it's not as simple as that, is it?
No, not at all. And speaking of not simple, can we talk about this whole nostalgia thing around Trump? Even with his approval ratings back then, there's this weird poll. One source even mentioned a Dua Lipa song about future nostalgia. Tetchy song, by the way. But it actually seems relevant here. It's like voters are looking back on his presidency with rose-colored glasses, remembering it more favorably than they experienced it.
Isn't that interesting? It's more than just a catchy song, though. It's a real trend. Research actually shows that people, conservatives in particular, are remembering Trump's approval rating as being higher than it actually was. It seems like there's this longing for what they think was a better time, even if that past is more like a fantasy than reality. Make America Great Again, that whole Maggie movement. It really taps into that feeling. It's explicitly calling for a return to a time they see as better, more aligned with their values.
But there was a lot of controversy during his presidency, right? I mean, we can't just gloss over that. Bob Woodward, and yeah, I'm talking about the Bob Woodward from Watergate, even said that Trump's first term was the most disqualifying presidential term ever. He even compared it to Nixon.
And he's not the only one saying that. A lot of historians and political scientists, they say that Trump's actions, especially around the 2020 election and January 6th, were incredibly damaging to American democracy.
It's wild to see such completely different viewpoints. Some people want Trump back, while others think he was the worst thing to happen to American politics. And then you've got Mitch McConnell calling Trump stupid, despicable, a sleazeball. Even within the Republican Party, there's this disconnect between what they say publicly and what they actually think, right?
It's a huge part of this whole story. You have all these prominent Republicans who were totally against Trump before, but now they're falling in line. They're prioritizing party unity over their own concerns. It shows you just how much tension there is between what people believe and how politics actually work.
So far, we've got record-breaking early voting, a wave of nostalgia that seems to ignore the facts, and deep divisions within the GOP. It's a lot to unpack. Where do we even go from here?
It tells me that the 2024 election is going to be about more than just policy. It's going to be about how we understand things, how we see the past. It's about narratives, perceptions, even historical revisionism. And the big question is, how will these forces play out? Will voters choose to hold on to this nostalgic view? Or will they choose to look at what actually happened? That's what we need to figure out.
It's almost like we're seeing two completely different versions of reality at the same time, right? And it's not just some abstract thing. This disconnect is actually shaping how the campaigns are playing out.
Absolutely. And you can see it in the strategies both sides are using.
Yeah.
The Democrats, for instance, they're all about early voting more than ever before. It's like they're trying to get those votes locked in now, maybe because they're worried that as we get closer to November, those narratives of nostalgia and this desire for change, they might become even more persuasive.
And then you've got the Republicans, and it seems like they're walking this tightrope, right? Trying to appeal to Trump's base, but also not scare away those moderate voters who were still uneasy about him coming back into power.
It's a tough balancing act for sure. They need to keep the Maggie base energized. Those are the voters who really connect with Trump's message of returning to a greater America. But at the same time, they can't afford to alienate those more moderate, independent voters who might be swayed by the arguments about Trump's actions, especially around the 2020 election, and whether those make him unfit for office.
You mentioning those swing voters is interesting because even though the media always focuses on the extremes of both sides, it's those voters in the middle who could really swing the election one way or the other.
They absolutely could be the deciding factor. And that's why it's so important to understand what motivates them. What are their hopes and fears? What are they looking for in a leader? Are they looking for stability, a return to a more predictable political landscape after how turbulent things were during the Trump years? Or are they hungry for radical change, even if it means uncertainty, potential risks?
And where does Kamala Harris fit into all of this? The article about her campaign mentioned something really interesting. She's been actively courting support from Republicans, even featuring some former Trump aides at her events. What's the strategy there?
It's a really interesting tactic, and it could be a sign of things to come. By showing that she has support from people within the opposing party, especially those who used to be aligned with Trump, she's trying to broaden her appeal. It's a way of saying, I'm not just about partisan politics, I'm someone who can work with people from across the aisle.
That's a strong message, especially now when things are so politically divided. But it also makes you wonder, is this a real shift happening within the Republican Party, or is it just a few individuals breaking away looking for a new political home?
That's the big question, isn't it? Are we seeing a realignment within the GOP, with some Republicans rejecting the direction the party has taken under Trump? Or is this just a temporary thing, an alliance of convenience against a common opponent?
It'll be fascinating to see how it all unfolds. But one thing's for sure, no matter who wins in 2024, this election will have a huge impact for years to come.
Absolutely. The stakes are incredibly high. We're not just choosing a president, we're shaping the identity of America, deciding what kind of nation we want to be moving forward. It's about our values, our priorities, our vision for the future.
And that brings us back to you, the listener. As you watch this election unfold, I encourage you to look beyond just the surface level, the headlines, the rallies, the constant chatter on social media. Try to tune into those deeper currents we've been discussing.
It's all about asking yourself those critical questions. What are the underlying narratives that are shaping this election? Which interpretations of history are taking hold, and why? And how do those narratives connect with what voters are hoping for and what they're afraid of when they think about the future?
It's like we've been saying, there's the election happening right before our eyes, with all the campaign speeches and rallies, and then there's this whole other election taking place beneath the surface. It's where nostalgia is battling it out with the historical record, and where party loyalty is wrestling with people's own personal convictions. That's a lot to wrap your head around.
It definitely is. But here's the thing. When you engage with these complexities, when you take the time to think critically about the information coming at you from all sides, you become a more informed, more engaged, and ultimately a more empowered citizen. You're not just watching the election happen, you're participating in the larger conversation about our country's future.
And that's what this deep dive is all about, giving you the tools to make sense of it all. Your vote is your voice. And understanding these underlying forces at play can help you make a more informed decision, one that truly reflects your values and hopes for the future.
Exactly. And remember, being informed isn't just about knowing the facts and figures. It's about understanding the context, the motivations, the why behind the what. It's about piecing together those deeper stories that often don't make it into the headlines.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this final thought-provoking idea to ponder. If this yearning for the past, even a past that might not align with reality, is so powerful, what does it tell us about our relationship with truth itself in this digital age, where information spreads so rapidly and narratives can be so easily shaped and reshaped?
It's a question worth considering, don't you think? And it's not just relevant to this election. It's something we all need to grapple with in all aspects of our lives as we navigate this increasingly complex world.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the 2024 election. We'll be back soon to explore more of the big ideas shaping our world.